You need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Marcelo, the three to pick out. It's the spectacular. It's Gareth Bale. Wonderful goal. Sensational from Gareth Bale.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Victory looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind Topo Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Like a salmon, a spawning salmon.
And Diamante again. Oh, he's done it.
Unbelievable kick from Maria.
It is Tuesday, the 10th of May, 2022, and just 24 hours before this program went to air, Jason Goldsmith, we have the premiers finally crowned, but the mathematical equation did go, well, I was going to say down to the final game, but the penultimate game of the A-League men's season, despite the best efforts of Melbourne Victory, despite the best efforts of Western United,
and despite the best efforts of the Melbourne Victory fans too.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Despite the best efforts of all those involved, Melbourne City have held out to become premiers of the A-League men's competition.
Yes, back-to-back for Melbourne City. An amazing game last night just in terms of a spectacle. I went along and, to see the away active so large and invested in the game. It was a very, very interesting approach.
Yeah, it was absolutely wild, and we'll get to chat about that. We've got plenty of. It's been a good week for Australian football in terms of not just locally but internationally, really.
Well, it's led the sport on the last few days. We've had from Scotland, then we've had from England, and then we've had from Australia and Melbourne, leading the sport coverage on most of the TV networks.
And we all know how good of a week it has to be in Australian soccer or football, whatever you like to call it, for us to get that paper coverage, for us to be doing the rounds. It has to be big ticket stuff.
And they were good reasons too. They were great reasons, all of them. So it's
Ange Postecoglou on the verge of glory with Celtic.
Yes.
Sam Kerr's exploits with Chelsea, both as an individual and as a team. We'll get into all of that later. We'll have Pakua Frimpong jumping on the air with us as well to talk a bit of that Sam Kerr stuff. But we will start off with the domestic side of things. And as we said, Melbourne City, despite the best efforts of everyone involved, Western United, Melbourne Victory, the fans of Melbourne Phoenix, as I'm going to call them, or Wellington Victory, whatever you like, for last night, could not keep Melbourne City away from the Premiers played. They ran out 2-1 winners in a bit of a nervy game, all things considered, last night against Wellington.
It was, and they're the first back-to-back since Sydney. And, of course, Sydney didn't go on to do the double. That was the famous semi-loss with the Terry Antonis goal. So, but City did it the hard way. You've got to remember they have been stuck in Asia for the Asian Champions League, and they came home via Perth to play against the Glory last week in what should have been a formality. Glory have got probably one of the worst records in the history of the A-League, and they managed to beat City 2-0. So City could have wrapped it up last week. The chances of having all top three Melbourne teams a chance of winning the Premier's Plate going into games this weekend, which, again, we don't have simultaneous kickoffs like we do in most other leagues for the final round.
The chagrin of many people involved.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that a bit later. So as it turns out, City had to win the plate. If a draw or a loss would have seen Melbourne Victory take it over. And just kudos to the Victory fans that turned up. They have come from 12th to 2nd, 1 point off the title. It's been an amazing season for them on the back of Tony Popovich and the rest of it. And then they made a lot of noise for Wellington Phoenix last night, a lot of noise, probably louder than the City home fans, to be honest. But for good reason, they were trying to get a slip up, but it didn't happen.
They did, and it led to a very weird, obviously very weird atmosphere in the sense that it was somehow the group of people making the biggest noise at the stadium on the night were the one club that did not have a team competing on the evening, which is rare. But that almost became a bigger, at a lot of points, a bigger spectacle than the game itself.
The atmosphere was great. I was sitting more in the GA section, more towards the City active fans with my kids. But it made for a great atmosphere. But I think maybe the A-League have done some good things in terms of ticketing, and what Melbourne City did as a goodwill gesture going into this last round was kids go free and members get a guest pass as well. And for those that have bought tickets online, that you plug in to get that free ticket. So Melbourne Victory fans and members got a hold of those codes and managed to stack up the crowd in numbers and numbers and numbers without giving any money over to the City Football Group for paying. And that's why the active was so big and strong, because they got their free tickets. And what else would you want to do on a Monday night? Then perhaps cheer on your greatest rival to drop the ball and them take the plate. But that didn't occur.
Well, it's an interesting one. I mean, if you're Melbourne City, if you're their ticketing officer or whoever's really in charge of this, how do you feel about the fact that the majority of redeemers for your free ticket scheme were fans of a completely different team? Because a lot of that we've seen between Victory and City fans in the aftermath of this game is all about, we've taken more of these free tickets than you have. We've taken advantage of the system.
It's I think they're all trolling each other. It probably adds to the rivalry somewhat, Lachie, because I'm sure they don't get a cut of the food and beverage from Amy Park. I'm sure that just goes to the venue. So in terms of City handing out all these free tickets, what they've done is this added to the atmosphere. And luckily, the atmosphere was actually a lot of fun and full of banter. And even towards the end, when City had the win, and you had Andrew Naboot and you had Jamie McLaren and Scott Galloway run straight out and wave their thank you to the Victory fans for turning up.
The City photographer, Alex Jason, was in on the act as well.
I did say he threw a big left punch in the air as well. He was pretty happy. So, look, it added to the atmosphere. And then the Victory fans hang around till the end. So when they were doing their walk around with the plate, the City players made a point of walking towards the Victory fans at the end and gave them a clap and didn't get a clap back.
Well, the interesting thing is, because it's something we were discussing off air, is that for you who went to the game, I was here, so I couldn't attend in person, but you were there with your kids, and you were surprised that at 2-0 because City dominated this first half of the game. They had two. They could very easily have had more. Jamie McLaren, a few shots that came off the post. You were shocked that they didn't.
Fair play. They hung around.
Didn't shoot off after City pulled to what looked like at the time an unassailable lead. But to their credit, the fact that they did stay around and the noise they continued to make, I think it really changed this game in the second 45, because Wellington completely grew into it. And right up until stoppage time, they were actually looking at a chance to grab an equaliser and make this interesting.
It's an interesting one for the Phoenix, right? So they had made the finals already, and so they had nothing really to play for, you know. They're playing Western United on the same track this Saturday coming, so you don't want to get used to it. So Rene Piscopo came on at half-time, so you're probably playing a few players that you may not play for the finals, rest and see what you're going. So they really didn't have much to play for in that respect, but I guess the crowd would have buoyed them a lot and got them moving. But the first 10 minutes, Gamulka, who hasn't had many minutes for Melbourne City, took both of those corners and put them straight in the right spot. So the first one was an own goal, and the second one was Jamie McLaren charging in for a header. So 2-0 within 10 minutes, and you thought, I think, the crowd might, at the other end, the away supporters might actually get a little bit smaller, but they didn't. And then, of course, Phoenix scored in the second half to make it 2-1, a little nervy, knowing that it's only one more goal to get there. So they did their best, but in the end, City too strong last night.
Yeah, it wasn't enough in the end, and Melbourne City for now do obviously hold the highest honours that they currently can. They've got the Premier's Plate, but has it, looking over the course of the season, Jason, has it, for your mind, been a convincing Premier's Plate win?
No, I think they've limped in towards the end here, and a lot of people are saying they haven't beaten a team in the top four. So that's Victory, Western United and Adelaide United. They haven't got a straight win over any of those three, whereas Victory have stormed into second in terms of their form, including wins over City and United and the like. So, but then in saying that, they've got a similar record to last year. They've actually done it. They have been the best team all year. Goal difference has proved that. The win-loss draw record has proven that as well. So it's going to be an interesting final series. They'll get to have a rest now they've secured the Premier's Plate. Don't play again until middle of next week. And given they've been overseas and on the road for a little while, it actually comes in very handy for them, I would think, to reset and recharge and see who they play in the semis.
Well, Melbourne Victory, they've lost the battle, obviously, in terms of the Premier's Plate.
Yep.
They had a great win over Sydney FC, who had nothing to play for over the weekend.
Yep.
But it was a win that was emphatic and done in some style. Do they, I mean, based off what you said at least, they stand as your sort of front runners to win the war that is the A-League men's season?
I reckon in form-wise, Victory, yeah, they've been there before. They definitely they'll get a home crowd advantage even if they're the away team, if they're playing City or Western United. We know that. They've got all the support here in Melbourne. And they've got guys in form. They're doing the jobs. We'll see what happens. It's handy for them, I think, first and second now with a week off, and then the semi-finals being a home and away leg now for this season. And they both of those teams will be playing the second leg, so they'll know what they have to do at home in the second leg. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
I just feel as well that the two-legged format in particular in those semi-finals, I feel as though that's really suited towards Tony Popovich football with no away goal considerations or that sort of thing. This is a team who over the stretch, obviously it took them some time, but they are just really good, particularly against the opponents that are close by them, grinding out results. And their form against the rest of the top four sort of speaks to that. When they haven't been able to beat one of these opponents outright, most of the time they've been able to get a draw against those two sides, playing with really compact system, not allowing a lot of space in between the lines. And in particular, Melbourne City, if these two teams do shape up against each other in a two-legged format, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, or they won't see each other in the semi-finals, obviously, because of the way things are set up. But in a regular 90 minutes, I don't know. I think Victory would probably feel that they've got the upper hand, particularly on the basis of the last meeting they had between the two sides.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about the form of the goalkeeper, Tom Glover, as well, so that might play into their hands as well.
As in more and more with each passing day, cruelly and ironically named keeper.
He didn't have the best Asian Champions League, so a couple of those goals he let in there. And then the one last night against the Phoenix, I thought he wasn't really in the right spot too. He could have got a hand to that. Guys, the thread of the eye of the needle there to score that goal. So,
the Perth game as well, he had one that
he had a shocker there, correct?
Squeezed underneath his grasp as well.
Yeah, so he's not in good form. So that might be a concern. They might get Beringer back in a couple of weeks, which will make a difference as well. Gamulka was very impressive, and Jordan Boss was very impressive to me last night. Again, we're talking about this is against the second string Phoenix, etc., but they had to get their job done, and there was a lot of pressure put on them by those away fans, which made a difference. So we're good on them. They've got the Premier's Plate. Let's see how they can go.
Yeah, well, they did get the job done, as you said, and that is absolutely everything. That is all they could do. At the end of the day, that was absolutely what they needed to do. Obviously, we've talked about City and Victory. The other team who were vying up until this weekend, where they more or less shot themselves in the foot against Adelaide United, was Western United. Obviously, that 2-1 loss to Adelaide. It seemed as though I don't know. There are some legitimate criticisms that have been labelled at John Aloisi's tactical approach, the difficulty they can have against sides in transition, and Adelaide definitely a side who are adept at exploiting those counter-attacking phases. This one, though, watching it back on the replay, did feel a little bit. Did it feel unjust to you?
Well, no, I think they had to. If they had have beaten Adelaide United, for them to get into second or first, they needed to win like 6 or 7-0.
That's
right.
true.
So the victory game was done on the Saturday. They knew the results. So they basically had nothing to play for.
So it's less about the Adelaide game. It's more about than draw against Newcastle.
Yeah. They dropped points in the last few weeks that have actually shot them in the foot. So coming into this round, we had 3 Melbourne teams all vying for the Premier's plate in the top spot. It would have been quite an interesting situation. They actually all played at 3 different games. There's 3 different grounds, 3 different states too. So a simultaneous kickoff situation like you see in most leagues throughout the world would have been ideal, because you would have had all 3 teams going for it without knowing the result of the other game, and it would have played out very differently. I know there would have definitely been a different fan base watching Melbourne City, that's for sure, last night.
Yeah.
But United would have had something to play for. So, they couldn't finish 4th if they lost. They couldn't really finish first if they won. You kind of deflated a touch, I'm sure, leading into the finals, and that's where it ended up for them.
Yeah, because it's a completely different thing. Obviously, in both circumstances, you're kind of getting secondhand. If you're playing simultaneous kickoffs, you are getting secondhand that information from a coach potentially that, this other team has just scored a goal. Like I remember the iconic version or example of this is 2011-12 in England.
Yep.
Manchester United had finished their game, but the word did filter through that City had scored and City had equalised. It's a similar circumstance when you already know the result going into a game. You've got another team keeping you honest if they get the right result. But to have that in the moment, it's a completely different psychological impact, isn't it?
It is. I mean, and then in leagues such as the UK and the rest, you've got relegation to take into place, as well as the titles, right? Which we don't want to get into a pro-rel debate.
That's a subject for a different podcast.
We don't have relegation, but we had the opportunity having three separate games of the 3 teams going down to the wire. Sunday, 4:00, why wouldn't you just throw them all in as well? There's a game on Brisbane and Sydney tonight, which actually has no relevance to the result of the season, and it's just going through the motions really. And we could have had the chance to have those 3 games. It would have been great, but didn't happen. We got a very peculiar and unusual atmosphere at AAMI Park on Monday night, but it was actually a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
I was going to say, what was the way you described it again? Peculiar,
unusual.
Yes. You're pretty much just describing the A-League men's to me.
Well, correct. Yeah.
Honestly, in a way, it's ridiculous, but at the same time, I can't think of anything more fitting.
Well, they said the banter saying, we've got more supporters than you. Like, you only come with their free tickets, all that kind of stuff. And then, the players celebrating in front of the Victory fans rather than in front of the City fans, and all that kind of extra banter is going to add to it. Because if we do get an A-League grand final, which is City and Victory, yes, we just get extra and extra.
It was quite strange because as someone without a horse in the race in terms of who I wanted to finish top, I couldn't help but scroll through all these different bits of Twitter diatribe between Victory and City fans and think it was all a bit petty. But on the other side of the coin, as you said...
That's how you described the A-League.
As you said, it fuels the rivalry, and also it's nice to be reminded that people care enough to be so petty be defensive and insecure. It's weird. I would probably pick my battles a bit differently, but it's just nice to know that people care.
It is, and these are the people that we want. These are probably the people listening to us, right?
Exactly.
So they're the ones that are involved.
We want more people just turning up to random games that may or may not benefit their team in the future.
The other thing that was interesting too, so being based in Melbourne, there was a lot of Richmond scarves that have the black and yellow colours of Wellington Phoenix in the away section with the Victory fans wearing.
That is just a level.
They're going all out.
Level of ingenuity and commitment to bleephousery that I can only admire.
No, it was very, very fun. It was yes, it's very, very weird, but very, very fun.
That is the A-League men's. Well, for Melbourne City and Melbourne Victory, they have got a break until the elimination finals this weekend. Do we want to get into the elimination finals now?
Let's do it.
And then we can delve a little bit more into the subject of simultaneous kickoffs with a certain guest, Pakua Frimpong, when we talk about the FA Women's Super League. But this weekend, it all kicks off Saturday, 7:45 p.m. The first elimination final here in Melbourne.
Yes.
And obviously we don't like to touch too much on the Victorian predilections of this particular radio station. But it is very nice to have gone from very much feast and famine. We've got not many finals historically played in Melbourne to we're looking like we're going to have a glut of them.
Well, we're going to have at least 3, possibly 4, maybe 5. Even 5, right?
Look, I know there are some New South Wales listeners rolling their eyes right now and going, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. But it is a nice change of pace. Just this once, just let us have this. Let us have the 3 teams.
Which is good because we only got the Melbourne team shirts.
If you're annoyed with the state of play, just send us down an Adelaide United, a Macarthur, if you're out there, jersey, and let us pop them on there. But it does kick off with a Melbourne final, and that is Western United taking on the Wellington Phoenix, 7:45 p.m. this Saturday, Amy Park. Obviously, many people will remember that not all that long ago, Western United had a bit of a shame game against Wellington Phoenix in Ballarat. They went down 4-1 on the day, and Wellington are a side against whom they haven't won since their first ever meeting, since 2019. Off the top of my head, I think it's 8 meetings, 6 wins for the Phoenix, 1 draw, 1 Western win. How do you see this game? Because obviously Western, they are the higher team. They are the 3rd place team playing against the 6th, but they've really struggled against Wellington in particular this season. They'll be back in front of a home crowd though. Does that do enough to change things for them in your mind?
I'm not sure because the home crowd's going to be quite small, as we know, expansion club and the rest of it, but it will be. And if the Phoenix do happen to win this one, they get a home final again. And you can see we've had 15,000 and 18,000 their last 2 games in New Zealand. So that actually might be good for the league. If that happens, I'm not sure. So they played last night here at Amy Park. They would have gone home. They've got to come back again. Same pitch. Go again. I'm not too sure. That's an interesting record when it comes to finals, but I don't think it means anything once they walk out there on Saturday. So Western United, if they slip up here, it'll be quite the opportunity lost, given they were actually playing as of the start of the weekend. They were playing for the Premier's plate. It would be very, very, very much a opportunity missed.
It's interesting. I was lucky enough for one of our different programs on this radio station, the Green Room, which is back with quite a bevy of guests tomorrow. We've got Ben Garuccio in studio, Neil Kilkenny in studio, and then I was able to sit down and speak to John Aloisi today.
Nice. And the vibe there is?
Well, it's an interesting one because we sort of discussed the idea that in some ways, given the recent weeks, their form hasn't been great, winless in the last 3 heading into finals, is never the ideal preparation to come up against a team who have given you a hard time in recent meetings. Again, not an ideal situation. But John Aloisi was adamant when we were talking that this is almost the ideal opponent for them to start things off with, in the sense that if they can get this result, if they can get the 3 points over Wellington, who are maybe in that 6, the team against whom they've struggled the most this year, break that hoodoo in front of the home crowd, who, as you mentioned, might not have the desired numbers, but they will make a good noise. The Western Service crew do a lot with, not ideal, maybe more limited means compared to the likes of Melbourne Victory. That would be a huge confidence booster if they can grab this one, and they'd come up against a side who maybe a Melbourne Victory and maybe down the line in Melbourne City, who they know that they stack up against a little bit better. Is that a theory you can subscribe to?
Maybe. I think so. Look, if they're confident, it should be noted. Like I always look at when it comes to the finals and the playoffs and those kinds of things, the goal difference is a big indicator to me of how the season's actually panned out. And Wellington Phoenix is -15. Granted, they've had a very, very tough year. We should actually applaud the fact that they've made the finals. They've been on the road for most of the season, so it is quite the effort. But yeah, interesting. I think the record's out the window. I reckon Western United will win this one and then going to have some more Melbourne finals coming up into the next week and week after.
I'm really conflicted about it, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't know how this one is going to go. I mean, I'm still leaning towards a Western win. I think the fact that they're actually playing not just in Victoria but at Amy Park for the first time in what John was saying to me is quite a while. It's been a few months. I think Melbourne Victory was the last game they played at Amy Park, which is a good,
prior to Christmas.
A good 2 months or so. 2.5 months since now, and they've obviously played in Victoria since then. But it's been in Ballarat. It's been at different venues. They've had the games in Tasmania, so there's been a lot of that chopping and changing. So he's hopeful that that home crowd will make a difference. But these two sides didn't play all that long ago, and it was a resounding win on the scoreboard for Wellington, because they exposed a weakness in this Western United side that we've seen a few teams do this season. And it was interesting to note that they also lost to the likes of Adelaide and Central Coast in the past few weeks, two more teams that will be playing in finals, but two teams that have that sort of transitional, fast-paced, in counterattacks zeal to the way they like to play football. Yep. Those are the kind of teams against the Western in terms of their recovery defending, getting back into shape. Mm-hmm. They don't really seem to have an answer for those teams. And obviously, the Wellington game wasn't all that long ago. The Central Coast Mariners game was 2 weeks ago, and the Adelaide game was the most recent fixture. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if John Aloisi has worked out a plan for those sorts of teams. And if so, or if he hasn't done that yet, he's got until Saturday to figure something out.
If he had have done that, there would be premiers. They'd be holding the premier's plate. So it's an interesting one. I mean, I'll put it this way. I do think that the home crowd will make a massive difference to have the Western Service crew to be at Amy Park, a place where they do get good results. They enjoy the players, the fans, the coaching staff. They all enjoy being there. But this game for me is no guarantee by any stretch of the imagination, because they're going to have to figure out a plan for a style of team that I don't think they've had a plan or a working plan for many times this season. When Western have had the ball, or more of the ball than their opponents, often they've struggled. Yeah, it's again, as a toss of the coin, I think the form elimination final is the other one. If you wanted to talk about, Adelaide United and Central Coast Mariners won the last 5 games on the trot each, and have exciting players across the attacking side of both teams have been quite amazing. And the late goals of Adelaide that we've seen throughout the season, where they managed to pinch results, and then Jason Cummings and the likes of Quoll and Kololo and these guys for the Mariners have been fantastic. I'm actually really excited for Sunday's game as well. Yeah. On the other side of it, so it's interesting to see how that one's going to play out.
I mean, for very different reasons, I think these are actually two really, really captivating elimination finals. I actually think that obviously there is a set order. We have a process for doing these things, but I think there is I like to think that up in the heavens there's an A-League men's script writer who's like, who are the best possible, what results can I influence to create the best possible elimination finals? I think we've got them here in Western Wellington, that game that does have a, historical, I guess, element of rivalry to it. And then the two teams who have been probably most known for their exciting young talent stepping up on the big stage in Adelaide and Central Coast. I mean, those two are almost the perfect matchups of who was available in and around the top 6 going into the final few months.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Western. I think I'm going with the home teams. I think Western United and Adelaide United are going to be the winners, but possibly going to be cheering for the other ones, just for the permutations of a Mariners home final and a Phoenix returning to New Zealand.
I'm going to make a bold claim here. I think Adelaide and Central Coast could be one of the... I've seen a lot of... I can't remember which final was it that's been doing the rounds on Twitter in the past few days. It was like a 5-4. I think it might have been Adelaide United and Perth Glory, 2018. I can't remember what the final score is, but it was goals galore. I think it went to extra time. I could see Adelaide and Central Coast with the exuberance of some of the players that are on offer, the younger talents, particularly towards the late game. I think we could see this being a game that goes the distance.
Yeah, let's hope so.
That's what I'll put there. But look, we've spent enough time looking into the crystal ball. Jason's going with both home teams. I am as yet undecided, but I think football will be the winner at the end of the day. And the only shame about what's led up to these games is that we didn't decide the makeup of the table with a simultaneous kickoff, which we'll get to chat about the idea of a simultaneous kickoff to Pakua Frimpong when we chat a bit of FA Women's Super League. Sam Kerr taking out the title with Chelsea to add to her overflowing trophy cabinet. And that's just this season on the other side of this break here on the Oz Football Hour.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Marcelo, the three to pick out. It's the spectacular. It's Gareth Bale. Wonderful goal. Sensational from Gareth Bale.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Vickery looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind Topo Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Like a salmon, a spawning salmon.
And Diamante again. Oh, he's done it.
Unbelievable kick. Come on here.
Welcome back here on the Oz Football Hour. If you're just joining us, we've wrapped up our domestic commitments for the time being, and we are going international. The A-League men's, they were no simultaneous kickoffs to be found locally, but over on the other side, we did have a connection, an Australian connection to simultaneous kickoffs in the FA Women's Super League. We're on a dramatic final day, and one that brings great pain, Jason, to the guest who is about to join us, Pakua Frimpong. Chelsea claimed FA Women's Super League glory. Sam Kerr scoring two of the best, one of the best braces you will ever see in a 4-2 win. In a 4-2 win over Manchester United, which meant that Pakua Frimpong's Arsenal side, or she doesn't play for them, but the Arsenal side that she supports, missed out on the title by one single point.
You know what, Lachie? That slow rundown to it, I didn't need it. Quite frankly, great.
Well, Pakua, we'll get to the emotional Arsenal element of this first. Shall we start with what this means in an Australian context?
Let's talk about the simultaneous kickoff, because I had the Chelsea game on the big screen.
Yep.
And I had the Arsenal game on my laptop.
Because it mattered the least, if in all honesty.
Well, Chelsea lost, and then the other game was going to come on board. So it was great to watch the score. And so then I had a live ladder on my phone as well, so seeing what was happening. So Man United went ahead twice against Chelsea, and Arsenal seemed to be in control. Yeah. So the permutations were there for those two games to watch. Obviously, Arsenal with the Australian contingent of Steph Catley and Lydia Williams.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden at 2-1 down, Sam Kerr goes left foot volley, and then the rest was done, wasn't it?
The simultaneous kickoffs were phenomenal, because it not only did it matter for Chelsea and Arsenal, it actually mattered for Man United if they were going to make, top 4 and go to the Champions League next year. So it all around, I'm a massive fan of simultaneous kickoff. So as football fans, we remember Aguero kicking that goal and Man United fans walking around in absolute disbelief.
Yeah, it's only the second time we brought it up on this this program tonight.
But it's needed, and I think it's important, especially when you get into the last round, and if it's close. Sometimes I guess people are like, oh, why does it matter if who somebody's already decided it? But for the atmosphere, there's always something to play for. There's always pride. For me, I actually was in the movies when this game was going on.
Which movie?
After Yang, great indie film from A24. It's very nice. Everybody should go check it out. But I was like looking constantly. I probably was that annoying person in the cinema.
Oh, the light was coming on.
No, but
if it makes you feel any better, I was actually doing the exact same thing when Perth were playing Melbourne City during a screening of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse.
Seen that. It was a great movie. But as I walked out of the cinema and I was heading home, I saw Sam Kerr score that 4th goal, and I just dropped to my knees. And I think the cinema staff were looking at me going, is she okay? Like, is somebody like died? Yeah, but no, I think it was great spectacle, and it was a really interesting season all round. We had a really big period off in January, so it was nice to finish on like a high of games and really mattered at the end.
So Sam Kerr's won with Chelsea again, but her goal scoring record, are we just become oblivious to it here now and numb because it just happens so regularly that we see those 2 goals that are absolutely both just amazing, and we just go, oh yeah, that's Sam Kerr, that's what she does?
I think a little bit because some of her goals, are like the simple tap-ins, but she scores with her head, her right, left foot, like it doesn't matter. She will score from anywhere. And I think maybe because this year Myanmar wasn't as competitive in front of goal, people kind of were like, oh, Sam Kerr's run away with. So we weren't as focused on the goals she was scoring because it wasn't in a competitive like tally, those two together. But she scored some fabulous goals, and that second goal is to me, I look at it, I'm like, oh, this is the goal that Henri scored, and it's just like, why do you have to punish Arsenal with an Arsenal-esque goal? Like, I just
don't. It could be more painful, more Arsenal if you tried, really.
She tried, but she's phenomenal, and it's players like her only, come around once in a generation. We're very lucky to have her play for the Matildas, but it's disappointing that, she can't play for Arsenal. It'd be nice.
And what about with the Matildas? Like, she's got Fran Kirby providing it to her a lot, and she works so well in tandem there. Is she being used correctly, do you think?
For me, I don't think so. I think she shouldn't be playing as the striker. I think Caitlin Ford should be playing as the striker because I think Sam Kerr can go a little bit deeper, and even if she plays her out wide, she can come in, but I don't think
Can you play them together?
I think you can play them together.
A 2 system something that might work for Australia?
You can play them together, but Sam's actually really good at passing and, a good facilitator. But with, getting Gorry and Fowler in the team, like now, there shouldn't be an excuse for Sam Kerr not to get the ball and not to be in different types of positions as opposed to, that soccer is when they used to just lob it up to Tim Cahill and, you just pray he'd get it. We don't need to do that with Sam Kerr because she's to me, she's more skilled at, on the park at times than what Tim Cahill could have provided.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Tim Cahill in that response because it brings me to a question that I wanted to put to both of you. I was reading earlier today an article about Sam Kerr from Joey Lynch. You can go check it out in The Guardian. But he basically put the point that Sam Kerr is basically reaching that almost Tim Cahill level of status where she sort of transcends the actual sport that she plays. She is becoming bigger than the Matildas itself, bigger than the actual sport itself. She is that sort of that major figure that is over the top. Is that a theory that you think? Are we reaching that point with Sam Kerr in Australian football?
Have to be, absolutely, because not only is she doing it with the national team, she's won 7 golden boots in 3 different countries, right? And so when the US was the top women's league, she's winning golden boots, and now the UK is the top, or England's the top women's league, she's winning golden boots and absolutely smashing it, and probably against harder opposition now. She's getting better and better.
I think she does. It's weird because, we've got like Ellie Carpenter and stuff like that who will play for really big teams and are amazing, but as football fans, we love the goals, and the goals are the easy things to identify. It's not hard. It's not easy for some football fans to recognise great defending, what Ellie Carpenter does provide, who probably is the second biggest, besides like Steph Curley, who's also a defender. I think Sam Kerr is, in a way, bigger than the Matildas, and obviously not one player is bigger than the national team, but when, if you asked every, general people who didn't really know much about football, they probably could tell you who Sam Kerr is and, could tell you something, they may list the backflips or something, but Sam Kerr is the bigger name right now than the Matildas.
And the backflips aren't there like they used to be, right? She doesn't need to, because now there's left foot volleys and she's chesting it down and lobbing the keeper. Like, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
I loved the most was that was leading the sports on all of the breakfast television on Monday morning.
Yeah,
that was magnificent.
And as we said at the top of the program, Jason, how rare it is for a football-related story to have that kind of
good news story,
have that kind of traction. But reading the rap sheet here, 3 WSL titles, 2 League Cups, a Community Shield, an FA Cup, and obviously back-to-back Golden Boots, and the icing on the cake is that PFA Women's Player of the Year award, standing alongside in the company of Mohamed Salah. I'm not even.
Mo was in her company.
Exactly. No, thank you very much. That's a great point. But I don't even think it's a question of surpassing Tim Cahill or surpassing the Matilda. We're talking about across all competitions, across all sports people, one of top 3, top 5 in the whole of Australia at the present moment.
Absolutely. I think that she's reaching a stage where she could be the biggest sports, star in this country. I don't know she's the biggest female athlete, because I think Ash Barty's incredibly popular and
she's retired now. It's old news.
But I think that the marketing strategy behind Sam Kerr, I think it needs to be ramped up, because I think next year as well, I think Miedema might leave Arsenal, so Sam Kerr might win another, scoring title again. So she needs to be bigger. We need to see her on more ads, because we see her on the CommBank ads. I can't list all the ads off my top of my head.
CommBank definitely one of them. See it into the old brain.
But
she does Mate too. I think she does.
She's an Adidas.
Yep, definitely Mate. Again, another one.
But she needs to be on everything. And if she wasn't playing football, let's say she was playing tennis or some of these other sports, she would comfortably. You wouldn't have to question if she was the number one female or even athlete in the country. I think there's a little bit steps she needs to go, which I don't think she should have to, because she's done incredible things, but it's just the nature of the Australian sports landscape.
We need to do it. We need to push and push and push and push, especially leading into the Women's World Cup. She is the biggest selling point we've got by miles.
Well, I think the Women's World Cup, having that here, can only sort of help that star to rise, that ascent, the advertising elements of it will only assist her, I would imagine.
Absolutely, but if the Matildas, do poorly, then
I knew you were going to be.
No, if the Matildas are at risk of doing kind of poorly in that tournament, because they get put into that, that first pot, they may get stuck with one of these hard teams that have fallen down just because of where Australia and New Zealand go. If they don't do well, then everybody maybe starts questioning it, which I don't think they should, and I don't think they have the right to. But I think it's just natural for humans to be like, maybe are they, is she really all that high?
Deal, yeah.
Well, on the subject of Australians not doing as well, or Matildas not doing as well as they would have liked, the other side of this coin, and before I go into it, I've got to give a shout out as well to Tanya Oxtoby, the assistant coach in the Chelsea. Yeah. It's been a pretty good weekend to be an Australian coach. David Zdrilic, an assistant at Genoa, obviously got a great result. Doesn't necessarily save Genoa from relegation, but he got a good result in Serie A this weekend. We'll talk about Ange on the other side of our break, soon to be upcoming. But the other side of the coin.
Didn't Joe Montemurro as well?
Joe Montemurro as well, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, the girls.
Again, it continues to just solidify what a week this has been. But the other side of the coin is the Arsenal Matildas.
Yeah.
Where did it go wrong? Because obviously they won their game on the final day of the season, but was this a... Obviously, 1 point, you didn't really go that wrong. But is there a specific moment for someone who's been really paying attention to the side this year?
I will say, if you look at the 1 point, you go, Arsenal must have had a great season. But I actually don't. There was a period, Arsenal started really well. They beat Chelsea off the bat. Now, mind you, a lot of Chelsea players were off because Sam Kerr had just come back from, she wasn't playing because of the Olympics. Yeah. And we won because Beth Mead scored a goal, which was very much offside if you've looked at the photo. Arsenal were good, and there was a lot of talk on Arsenal going to go invincible. We almost did, certainly. But the playing style at times, the goals dried up, which is weird to say for a side that's got Miedema, who, came second the year before in the goal-scoring tally. And we under Joe Montemurro, we scored lots of goals. We were really creative, but we lacked goals. And we lost to Birmingham City, who are going to get relegated. And that was our only loss of the season. Had we beaten them, even if we drew to Chelsea, which the game we should have won, the second one, Arsenal should never have been placed in this position. The playing style was poor. There was some poor managerial decisions at times. Players who you thought, should have played. Ian Wright made a tweet, said, why is Mana Iwabuchi not playing? I questioned that the whole season. She's a fantastic little player who, gets into these little in-between spaces. But unfortunately for Arsenal, when it really mattered, sometimes we failed to score, and that's what it comes down to, and that's why Chelsea, are the FAWSL.
To lose to a relegated team in the lead up to the final day of the season, that feels like about it.
No, but it wasn't so, it was quite early. It was much earlier. So we beat them the second time, but the first time we faced them, they put 11 players behind the ball and we just could not break them down. And they scored 2 goals against us. And our defence at times has been quite shaky, and we've been through multiple defensive partnerships. Leah Williamson went out at times as well. But I don't think that's an excuse for a side that's going down. And, they've been competitive against some of these bigger sides. But I think Arsenal, when it really mattered, they faltered and they didn't show conviction they needed.
Well, it's despair for the Matildas stars as part of the Arsenal game.
She scored a great goal.
Despair for Pakua Frimpong as well. But Pakua, hopefully this chat has been cathartic for you. You can pick yourself back up, get back to the drawing board, but also have a chance to appreciate and respect the absolute accomplishment.
I love Sam Kerr, but I hate him at the same time.
Of Sam Kerr. Well,
you can do that.
Kudos to Sam Kerr. On the other side of this break, we're going to be chatting to another Australian who is getting set. Touch wood, touch whatever rabbit's foot you've got to hand. Cross your fingers and your toes. Getting set to celebrate similar league title glory in Ange Postecoglou, but more on him on the other side of the break.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Victory looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind Topo Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Like a salmon, a spawning salmon.
And Diamante again. Oh, he's done it.
Unbelievable kick. Mamma mia.
Back for the final time this evening here on the Oz Football Hour. We're doing a bit of almost like an Australian backpackers kind of trip here, aren't we? We started in
heading
Australia,
north,
the origin. We made it across to London to talk about the North and the West, Chelsea and London,
Via
the Women's Super League.
Via Thailand too with the Asian Champions League.
Exactly,
Yeah.
via Thailand. It's getting more and more cliche by the moment, but we are up north in the coldest place in the world, well, compared to Australia at least, in Scotland, where Ange Postecoglou is one single point away from Scottish premiership glory with Celtic. They play Dundee United 8:30 p.m. tomorrow night, Wednesday. Yep. So if you are an Australian football enthusiast, a very accessible kickoff time if you do potentially want to watch Ange's coronation. But the game over the weekend that put them in that finest margin touching distance of crowning themselves champions was their 4-1 win, as much as it pains me to admit it, over Hearts at the weekend. Jason, I don't really know what more superlatives we can use to describe Ange's job that he's done at Celtic, or ones that haven't been brought into the conversation by other people on soccer Twitter, but do your best.
Okay,
Where's the head at for this one?
So Hearts scored the first goal, and then Celtic put 4 past them. So like the game itself, we'll probably gloss over. I guess when we're talking about Ange, as a manager living his best life in an environment that appreciates him the most, and that's what's happening. But I think the other thing that I took from that was just the footage of him putting his arm around Cam Devlin at the end of the game. And so Cam obviously being an Aussie playing for Hearts, Ange being an Aussie in Scotland, still chatting to him and putting his arm around him, and I guess I'm sure being out there to reach out and talk to him. And there was an article this week as well saying that now he's talking to all the Australian coaches, and that we might be on the verge of a golden generation of coaches. And he's dropping names like he talks to Muscat, and he talks to Pappas, and he talks to Kleminski, and now is like Popovic and Paddock Isnorbo and the rest. So maybe that's where we're heading.
So stop me if I'm going a little bit over the top here, Jason. Is Ange the Jesus of Australian football?
No.
Like he is the leader. He's got his coaching disciples that he's giving his teachings down. Which one is the Judas? That's what concerns me.
I wouldn't call him that to the Celtic fans, perhaps. And maybe the Godfather or something like that might be better. Or the Rangers fans.
There actually
take that
is.
on.
I have somewhere locked away in the deep recesses of my camera roll a Photoshop of Ange as in the Godfather movie poster.
There you go. Yep.
And so that is actually. That is a perfect one, but yeah, we don't need to touch too much on the game, but we can talk plenty about Ange the person and the job he's done. You obviously, I should say, spoke last week to Chris McLaughlin, and I remember speaking to him on the verge of this appointment, and basically what we said at the time was that this is either going to be a match made in hell or a match made in heaven, and it has definitely been the latter and not the former for Ange. And a lot of people in England have had to walk back on their initial opinions. Ange has really, the job he's done to prove people wrong by, again, it's not guaranteed, but he's got to get a point against Dundee and Motherwell. It's about as guaranteed as you can get. There's, I think, 30 or so points between Celtic and Dundee on the table, maybe even more. I mean, Hearts, whom they beat 4-1 on the weekend, beat Dundee United pretty convincingly a few weeks ago. So it's that close. But it's just a remarkable job he's done to prove everyone wrong. And the bit I like most about it, Jason, is that he has done it all through this time without ever once, as he always has been, be it whatever job he's had in Australian football, without compromising on his tactical beliefs.
He hasn't done that at all. Brought in the players that he wanted to bring in as well, on a limited budget. Had to use their coaching staff and work through that. So the other thing, so David Davudovic's pick of the old, his little piece on Optus on the Old Firm derby is worth checking out if you haven't seen it. It's amazing. He's actually on the sidelines as they go through and hit the front 1-0 against Rangers. Really worth watching. It goes for about 6 or 7 minutes. You can probably find that online. The other thing that's interesting to me that I actually don't find it cringy that the fans have got inflatable kangaroos and are wearing swagman hats with corks and stuff.
I honestly quite like
it's
the buy-in.
It's not cringy. Like if we were supporting the Socceroos at home doing that, don't think it would have the same gloss. But I mean, the buy-in has been amazing. It's not cringy at all. It's like they love this guy.
No, and it really is helping to build this synergy that seems to, it started off a little bit antagonistic, the relationship between soccer Twitter and Fitba Twitter, because they were sort of punching or attempting to punch down on one another without realising they were in fact on equal footing.
Yes. Yep.
But now we're really starting to see that partnership flourish, because obviously we've seen the maroon coloured Australian flags at Hearts games. They've got their little contingency going, but plenty of Australian players. I mean, Keanu Bacchus, Chanchart for Western Sydney as well.
Heading over there, yeah.
Linked with moves to the SPFL. So this might be the start of and the players who have crossed over from the two national teams. It might be the start or the
beautiful friendship,
the renaissance of a really beautiful friendship indeed.
We'll have to see that Lyndon Dykes and Harry Suter and Marty Boyle crossover.
My favourite bit, going back to the whole uncompromising, honest principles Ange idea, is as we've made the point, he only needs one more. A single draw will get him there. He's got 2 games in which to do it. Be very easy in that situation to batten down the hatches, to put 11 players behind the ball and just eke out the result that will guarantee you victory. What do you reckon the percentage chances of Ange doing that are? Absolutely zero. He is not doing that by any stretch of the imagination. The only loser from this situation is, I mean, the discourse that people have to put up with between Rangers and Celtic fans when they argue who's the more impressive. If Rangers win the Europa League, they have to
of course,
have their petty fight online about who had the bigger achievement, who had the better season. But for us down in Australia, regardless of whether you've got a horse in the Scottish Premiership race or not, it's just an amazing feat that we've, in a coaching sense, we haven't come anything close to.
We
this
haven't,
before.
not on a global scale, which is magnificent. If we want to continue your backpacker theory too, Lachie, if we want to just cross the border just a little bit, Sunderland.
No, I quite like it in Scotland. I'll allow it.
Sunderland. So, one of the clubs that potentially helped a lot of people in lockdown with Sunderland Till I Die Netflix series.
Unless they were Sunderland fans.
They were.
Yes.
Well, it's it helped a lot of us get through a lot of a lonely time. But and we had Jack Rodwell end up playing here in Australia, but we also have Bailey Wright playing for Sunderland. And Sunderland knocked out Sheffield Wednesday and Massimo Luongo overnight to make the playoff to actually get elevated into the championship. So on the 22nd of May at midnight, Sunderland will take on the Wickham Wanderers.
So does that mean, are we a chance of seeing... Because obviously they are playing against Wickham. The bit that excites me about this, other than the obvious patriotic, another Australian player overseas celebrating a bit of success, will Bailey Wright get to go directly and match up against Adebayo Akinfenwa, the man mountain?
I don't know. We'd have to check into that, look into that closer. I haven't looked through that.
I mean, he is still with Wickham. He's still available. I saw him doing his full-time interviews after the 1-0, after the result against MK Dons across the 2 legs. He's still around. So this may be a massive moment in Australian football for the success of an individual player, and Bailey Wright, who I will say as a former Langwarren junior, got to shout him out.
Yes.
But also for meme content.
Is that what you say, massive inclusion? Is that what you meant?
Yes. He is a massive inclusion in all senses of the word. Was there another Aussie in promotion hope that you wanted to shout out before we head off?
Swindon Town, owned by an Australian, and they are in a 2-legged playoff with Port Vale to make the championship playoff for League 2. Now, Swindon Town were on the brink of bankruptcy before being purchased outright by Clem Morfunu, who's an Australian from Sydney.
Yes, that's right. I do remember that.
And so they actually will start off this Sunday against Port Vale. And then have a follow-up the week after. So there's a potential for them to get promotion, which would be an amazing story. And if we want to come back on our backpackers trip via the Middle East,
absolutely,
the Socceroos have announced a friendly with Jordan, 3 or 4 days. I
think it's 4 before
4 days before the playoff with the UAE. So
interesting timing. Is that a good or a bad thing to have it scheduled so close? Because I guess you could either make the argument that it's great for them to have that early warm-up, or maybe that it's too close.
I think they've got to put them together, or maybe we need time for Jason Cummings to gel with the midfield.
Well, I mean that is about as good and important as a final message as we could possibly hope to sign this show off. Thanks, as always, Jason. Another hour in the books. Cap the cum dog. Our final word here on the Oz Football Hour. That's all for us here on the program. We've reached the 7 o'clock watermark, but do stick around, because coming up on the other side of this break, we have Nick Debano and one of the greatest people in Victorian football to join us on the station for the return, Jason, of Paco Radio. I'll be listening to this with a very keen interest because Lou Toner is a man that is worth listening to, and you'll get to listen to him on the other side of this nice little intro music. But until next week from us on the Oz Football Hour, Jason Goldsmith and Lachie Flanagan, it's goodbye for now.
Vickery looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind Top or Stanley? It doesn't